The cheerful atmosphere of a summer holiday weekend was brutally cut short in September 2009 by a horrific act of violence against 27-year-old Jessica Lynn Callagher. Her abduction and murder from a seemingly ordinary place, a Walmart parking lot, sent shivers of fear and anguish through Cedar Park, Texas, and initiated a lengthy legal struggle to bring her assailant to justice. Jessica's narrative serves as a stark reminder of our shared vulnerabilities and the persistent quest for truth, even amidst the darkest of events. Born on May 8, 1982, in Austin, Texas, Jessica Lynn Callagher was remembered for her approachable demeanor, kind heart, and agreeable nature. She lived in Austin with her parents and two brothers before her family later moved to a smaller community called Pflugerville. Forming friendships came effortlessly to Jessica, but her social charm was complemented by an impressive determination. Even during high school, she held a clear aspiration. She dreamed of becoming an educator. To turn this dream into reality, Jessica enrolled at Texas State University, where she successfully earned her bachelor's degree in science. Her commitment to education didn't end there. She decided to pursue a master's degree. While studying, she also took on a role as a teaching assistant at an elementary school. To manage her student loan obligations and mounting bills, Jessica additionally worked part-time at a grocery store. Despite a demanding schedule that required her to balance multiple jobs, she maintained an incredibly positive outlook, convinced that her dedication would ultimately yield success. By September 2009, at 27 years old, Jessica was still juggling her academic pursuits with her two jobs, optimistically anticipating securing a full-time teaching position at her school, which would allow her to fully dedicate herself to the career she had always envisioned. The day before the Labor Day holiday in 2009, the 6th of September, was meant to be a relaxed one for Jessica. She spent it enjoying time with friends, including her cousin and close confidant, Melanie Lopez Kilpatrick. Their day unfolded with classic summer activities, time spent by the pool, followed by dinner out. Later, they visited a bar, played some pool, and as the evening drew to a close, Jessica, always reliable, volunteered to be the designated driver, ensuring everyone reached home safely. Melanie was the final person she dropped off. By this point, it was nearly 1:30 in the morning. Melanie invited Jessica to stay the night, but Jessica politely declined, explaining that she had an early shift at the grocery store and needed to make a quick stop at a 24-hour convenience store to pick up food for her dogs. After saying goodbye to her cousin, she drove away. The following morning, the 7th of September, a call from one of Jessica's co-workers shattered Melanie's calm. Jessica had failed to report for her shift, which was highly unusual, as Jessica was known for her dependability and had never missed work without a compelling reason, especially considering her recent promotion to store manager, a role that came with increased responsibilities. Growing increasingly concerned, Melanie attempted to reach several friends, but none had heard from Jessica. She then contacted Jessica's brother, John, who shared an apartment with her. John, a police officer who had started his own shift at 5:30 a.m., explained he hadn't noticed if Jessica had come home during the night and hadn't checked her room before leaving for work. Deeply worried, he immediately returned home. Jessica wasn't there, and it appeared she hadn't returned at all during the night. Her dogs were behaving unusually, almost as if they hadn't been fed in a while, a clear alarm bell that something was seriously wrong. Without hesitation, John contacted his police colleagues, requesting a trace on Jessica's phone. The signal led officers to a restaurant parking lot not far from her home. Melanie and her boyfriend quickly drove to the location and soon spotted Jessica's white Kia. As they approached and opened the door, they were met with a horrifying sight. Jessica was in the driver's seat, completely unresponsive. Her body showed visible sunburns, and the car's interior was intensely hot. Melanie's boyfriend immediately called the police, who dispatched officers and an ambulance. Paramedics confirmed Jessica was deceased, and her body was subsequently sent for further examination. Even at this early stage, it was evident that she had been subjected to an assault. Investigators began a meticulous examination of Jessica's vehicle. A critical observation was that the driver's seat was pushed unusually far back, leading detectives to suspect that, given her injuries, she might have been attacked right there in the car. They also discovered that her keys, wallet, and credit cards were missing. On the back seat lay a bag of dog food, supporting the theory that Jessica had indeed been at the location since the previous night, having planned to stop at the store immediately after dropping off her cousin. After thoroughly processing the car, detectives interviewed employees at the restaurant near the parking lot. This is where a shocking turn occurred. One employee informed investigators that upon arriving at work early that morning, she had noticed Jessica's car and, crucially, confirmed that Jessica was still alive at that time. According to this witness, Jessica was observed sitting inside her car, completely undressed and acting strangely, almost as if she were intoxicated. Despite the unusual nature of the scene, the employee proceeded inside to begin her shift. A short while later, stepping outside again, she saw Jessica sitting next to her car, now clothed, but still behaving oddly, simply sitting and running her hands through her hair. On a third occasion, the employee observed Jessica back in her car, talking to herself and making strange hand gestures. Police located several other witnesses who had seen Jessica alive that morning. However, despite her unusual behavior, not a single person called for help or even approached to check on her well-being. Following these witness accounts, detectives questioned Melanie about the possibility of Jessica being under the influence of alcohol or other substances. Melanie was adamant that Jessica had been completely sober that night, as she was the designated driver and had an early work shift. Regarding drugs, Melanie insisted Jessica had never used them. The strange behavior remained inexplicable to investigators until a possible explanation emerged from the medical examination. Medical examiners discovered clear evidence of strangulation on Jessica's body, marks left by both hands and an unidentified material, possibly a rope or belt. She was also covered in bruises and scratches, and tragically, she had been sexually assaulted. Experts suggested that the severe trauma she endured could have caused a brain injury, a condition likely exacerbated by the hours she spent in the scorching heat inside her car. This medical explanation offered a potential reason for her disoriented and unusual behavior, as it might have rendered her unable to comprehend her situation or seek help. It was likely that Jessica was so incapacitated that she didn't realize the gravity of what was happening to her until it was too late. Ultimately, she succumbed to her injuries. Toxicology reports corroborated her cousin's statements, confirming the absence of alcohol or drugs in her system. This heartbreaking detail meant that if even one witness had called for medical assistance, doctors might have had an opportunity to save Jessica's life. But now, it was a homicide investigation, and detectives focused on identifying her killer. The immediate focus shifted to obtaining CCTV footage. Although there were no cameras near the specific parking lot where Jessica's car was found, detectives reasoned that if she had been buying dog food in the middle of the night, she likely stopped at the 24-hour Walmart just across the street. They secured the store's security footage, which showed Jessica pulling into the parking lot and walking inside. She appeared alone and perfectly normal, with no signs of distress. She proceeded directly to the pet food aisle, retrieved a large bag, and headed to the checkout. Everything seemed routine until, as she walked out of the store, detectives observed a chilling detail. Just a few seconds later, a man followed her outside. Further review of the footage revealed that this man had arrived at Walmart only minutes before Jessica. He parked at the far end of the lot and entered the store, but instead of shopping, he went straight to the restroom and then exited. The entrance camera captured him walking directly behind Jessica, moving with an apparent sense of urgency. Then, a critical blind spot. Jessica's car was parked directly behind a large tree, completely obscuring the view from the cameras. Despite this obstruction, the footage was sufficient to track the man's movements. He walked towards Jessica's car, disappeared behind the tree, and was not seen exiting the frame. 2 minutes later, Jessica's car was seen pulling out of the parking lot. Another camera later recorded it arriving at the restaurant parking lot where she would be discovered the next morning. A short while later, a person was seen exiting Jessica's car. This individual walked across the lot and headed directly towards Walmart's parking area, where he entered the same vehicle the suspicious man had arrived in earlier. At this point, detectives were almost certain this individual was directly involved in Jessica's murder. However, a significant problem remained. The surveillance footage was too grainy to clearly identify him or his vehicle. Nevertheless, detectives were not out of options. With Jessica's credit cards missing, they checked her accounts for any recent activity. This led to a crucial break. One of her cards had been used at a gas station approximately 20 minutes after her car was abandoned in the restaurant parking lot. Detectives obtained surveillance footage from the gas station and immediately spotted the red pickup truck their suspect had been driving. When they checked the camera near the register, their suspicions were confirmed. It was the same man. This provided concrete proof that the individual possessed Jessica's credit card, significantly increasing his culpability. They released the footage of the suspect and his vehicle to the news, appealing to the public for any information about him. Days turned into a week without major breakthroughs until detectives received a call from a woman named Leslie. She informed them that the man in the news footage bore a strong resemblance to her fiancé's best friend, 29-year-old Crispin Harmel. According to Leslie, Crispin was expected to visit that evening to repay money he owed, but he never showed up. Later, upon seeing the news report about Jessica's murder, she immediately recognized him in the surveillance footage. Despite her disbelief that he could be involved in such a horrific act, she knew it was her duty to contact the police. Detectives began delving into Crispin's background and quickly uncovered an intriguing detail. Just weeks before Jessica's murder, a patrol officer had pulled him over for driving with an expired license. When investigators reviewed the officer's body camera footage, they confirmed that Crispin closely resembled their suspect. Even more compelling, he was wearing the exact same baseball cap as the man seen in the Walmart surveillance footage. 5 days after Jessica's murder, police arrived at Crispin's home. Immediately, they noticed his pickup truck. It was the same model as the one captured on camera, but something was amiss. It appeared Crispin had made some cosmetic alterations. Chrome details that had been visible in the footage were now painted over in black. When detectives knocked on his door, Crispin surprised them by, without hesitation, admitting that he had met with Jessica that night. According to him, they had connected through an adult website and arranged a casual encounter. Crispin claimed they met in the Walmart parking lot, where he entered Jessica's car. His version of events stated that she then drove them to a park where they engaged in consensual sexual activity before she dropped him back off at Walmart. Before he left, they supposedly sat in her car and talked for a while. He alleged he mentioned his financial struggles, and Jessica, according to him, gave him her credit card to pay for gas. They then said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. The next day, upon seeing news reports about Jessica's murder, Crispin claimed he panicked. Fearing he would be accused, he admitted to throwing away the credit card and repainting parts of his truck. Even though Crispin delivered his story with apparent confidence, detectives recognized it as nothing but a fabrication, a desperate attempt to evade responsibility. The surveillance footage alone was sufficient to dismantle his entire narrative. He claimed they had arranged to meet in the Walmart parking lot, yet he only approached Jessica after she had returned to her car. He then asserted that she had driven him back after their supposed encounter, but the cameras told a different story. They clearly showed him walking back to his own truck alone. Jessica's car never moved from the parking lot until the next morning, and no one else had approached it. Detectives seized Crispin's phone and computer, along with Jessica's devices. As suspected, there was no trace of any communication between them. No messages, no calls, nothing. In fact, Jessica had never even visited the adult website Crispin claimed they had used. However, when investigators delved into Crispin's computer, they found something revealing. Just hours after police discovered Jessica's body, he had searched for and read multiple news articles about her murder. Jessica's friends and family also refuted his story. According to them, she was not the type of person to seek a one-night stand, much less to meet a complete stranger in a parking lot in the middle of the night. Such behavior was entirely inconsistent with her character. Furthermore, she had already told her friends she needed to get some sleep before her morning shift and still had to feed her dogs. There was no way she would have gone out for a secret late-night rendezvous. Investigators concluded that Crispin was doing everything he could to deflect blame. However, with so much evidence stacked against him, he couldn't devise a believable excuse. Based on the surveillance footage, detectives pieced together what they believed truly happened. Crispin likely spotted Jessica inside Walmart and targeted her. He followed her to her car, entered the vehicle, and used threats to prevent her from screaming or fighting back. From there, he may have forced her to drive to a nearby park where he assaulted her before returning to the parking lot near Walmart, closer to his own truck. Before leaving, he strangled her and stole her wallet and credit cards. When police confronted Crispin with this reconstructed sequence of events, he stopped answering questions and requested a lawyer. Despite the strong evidence against Crispin, investigators faced a significant legal challenge that could jeopardize the entire case. The fact that Jessica had remained alive for several hours after the attack created a major hurdle. Medical experts could not state with absolute certainty why this occurred. Cases like hers were so rare that medical science had not extensively studied them. While the official cause of death was listed as strangulation, there had been no documented case where someone was strangled, survived for hours while walking and talking, and then died later as a direct result of that attack. Because multiple witnesses had seen Jessica alive, the prosecutor lacked confidence that a jury would return a guilty verdict. The only definitive way to secure the case was a confession, but Crispin refused to admit to anything. Detectives found themselves in an incredibly difficult position. They were certain Crispin was responsible for Jessica's murder. No one else could have physically committed the crime. Yet, because she had remained alive until the morning, there was a real risk that the case would unravel in court. Hoping to bolster their case, investigators meticulously searched Jessica's car for any additional evidence. However, they found none. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing that could directly link Crispin to the immediate crime scene inside the car. Still, prosecutors devised a temporary solution. They charged him with evidence tampering in connection with Jessica's case. Crispin had admitted to discarding her credit card and repainting his truck, both clear attempts to conceal his tracks. With his own admissions as proof, they had sufficient grounds to hold him accountable for a crime while they continued to build a stronger murder case. In May 2010, Crispin pleaded guilty to evidence tampering and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But detectives were not deterred. They were committed to achieving full justice for Jessica, and to do so, they needed solid scientific proof directly linking Crispin to her murder. For years, their search yielded no progress. Then, in 2013, they encountered a scientific article that proved to be a turning point. This article described cases where strangulation did not immediately result in death, as typically expected. Instead, it triggered a condition known as delayed death syndrome, a phenomenon where victims suffer brain damage that leads to confusion, disorientation, and an inability to seek help. Everything described in the article perfectly matched Jessica's behavior after the attack. It also supported the initial medical examiner's conclusion that she had likely sustained a brain injury, rendering her unaware of her critical condition until it was too late. Detectives immediately contacted the author of this article and began building a murder case against Crispin, this time bolstered by cutting-edge medical science. In May 2014, Crispin Harmel was officially arrested for murder, but he continued to assert his innocence. During the trial, his defense attorney focused on one key point: the absence of DNA evidence linking Crispin directly to the crime. The prosecution had argued that Jessica had fought back during the attack and likely scratched her attacker, which should have left traces of DNA under her fingernails. However, forensic experts for the prosecution highlighted a crucial factor. Jessica had spent hours inside her car, trapped in extreme heat. At such high temperatures, DNA degrades rapidly, and by the time her body was examined, any genetic material under her nails would have likely broken down beyond the point of recovery. In addition to the forensic evidence, prosecutors heavily relied on the overwhelming amount of surveillance footage, which clearly pointed to Crispin's guilt. But then, an unexpected development occurred. Crispin's lawyer challenged the accuracy of the video timestamps used by the prosecution. When investigators initially obtained the raw footage directly from the security cameras, it contained no timestamps. Since the precise timing of events was crucial to the case, prosecutors had used specialized software to add them later. This detail provided the defense with an opening to cast doubt on the evidence. Crispin's attorney argued that this constituted a serious violation because he had never been provided with copies of the surveillance footage that included the added timestamps. Ultimately, the judge sided with the defense and was compelled to declare a mistrial. Just like that, Crispin once again evaded conviction for murder, all due to a technicality. However, he remained in prison, continuing to serve his 10-year sentence for evidence tampering. Meanwhile, prosecutors immediately began preparing for a new trial. Over the next few years, Crispin's legal team vigorously fought to prevent him from being retried, arguing that another trial would violate his rights. However, a higher court ultimately ruled in favor of the prosecution, clearing the way for justice to finally be served. The new trial began in 2018, and this time the prosecution meticulously covered every detail, leaving no room for the defense to exploit any technicalities. Their efforts succeeded in convincing the jury of Crispin's guilt, and he was finally convicted of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors had opted not to pursue the death penalty, fearing it might weaken their chances of securing a guilty verdict. They understood that the delayed death syndrome argument could still plant lingering doubts in jurors' minds, and in death penalty cases, a conviction requires absolute certainty. A few years later, Crispin attempted to appeal his sentence, but his request was denied. As a result, he remains behind bars with virtually no chance of ever walking free. Jessica's family expressed their profound gratitude to the investigators and prosecutors for their relentless pursuit of justice, even though it took 9 long years to reach a verdict. However, they also admitted that before the sentencing, they had hoped it might bring them some relief and closure. In reality, they acknowledged that no punishment for Crispin could ever truly alleviate their pain. Jessica Lynn Callagher's story remains a poignant testament to a life tragically cut short by a brutal act of violence. It highlights the unwavering dedication of those who fought tirelessly for justice, navigating complex legal hurdles and scientific ambiguities to ensure her killer was held accountable. While her absence leaves an unfillable void, her memory continues to serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and the enduring fight for safety and justice for all.